One. Okay, we are live, and I'm about to invite my co-host for this evening. Let's see how this goes. They're actually on. Here we go. Hello.
Hi there. Can you? Oh, how do I?
I cannot see you, but I can hear you.
There
There
we
we
go.
are. Hi. Now I can see you. How are
How are you?
you? Oh, yo. No, I'm good. Okay, so for anybody that's chiming in, we are going to be talking about books and writing and everything that about that today. And I'll preface in the beginning because what I'll do is after this is all recorded, I'll re-upload this next week on my YouTube channel for people to reference. And this week, whoop, I think I lost you. Where did you go? Let's see. Oh no, I wonder if she has we'll figure this out. Hello?
Hi. Sorry.
I don't know what happened, but
This is
you're back.
my first time doing a live. I do live in the Caribbean, so sometimes my Wi-Fi gets a little spotty.
Okay, well then I can always try to invite you in. But yeah, that brings the point of this week's a little different because I'm actually having two authors who work together in creating wonderful books of literature. And so at some point we'll have a flip over from one author to another. But yeah, and it's not your fault. You said this is your first live,
Yes.
or you just knew it live? Oh,
Yes.
perfect. Okay, well, kind of what I understand, and again, anybody can correct me if I am wrong, but people who follow you will probably be chiming on your end. People who follow me will do that on mine because this platform pushes it. We'll probably have some people who are new and don't know us jumping on it as well. So I like to always read comments and answer questions that pop up below because I may not see all your questions and vice versa. So at any point you're like, oh, wait, let me answer a question or ask the question loud and we'll both kind of give our interpretation on it. But yeah, we're just here to be casual. And I always like to start by letting my co hosts introduce themselves, what you write, and then I'll do that on my end just because again, we may be reaching new people. And then from there we'll go on to other things.
Sounds great. Well, my name is Katelynn, and I am one half of Katelynn Kelsey. Kelsey's in the comments as well under her personal account.
Oh, Kelsey.
Right, largely in fantasy. Specifically, Kelsey and I's joint project is like fantasy with like a little bit of romance, but I also personally write modern fantasy as well. But I love to read across pretty much most fictional genres as well.
That's fancy. Do you have an example? I don't know if you have an example of book or books
That
around.
I like to read.
Yeah, well, I meant like what you've been working on.
Oh, so Kelsey and I's joint project is a dual point of view fantasy that has its roots in um, Greco-Roman mythology with a sprinkling of like ancient Gaul in there as kind of its origin. And then I have a personal project on the back burner because we're trying to devote all our energy to this one, which is a modern fantasy about two sapphic witches, um, enemies to lovers, the whole shebang. And then Kelsey also has a personal project on the back burner that I'll let her talk about more later.
Perfect. So let me ask, I guess, one of the basic questions, and then, but before I get too far into it, let me hold that question. Actually, for anybody who does not know me, I am Katharine Weibel, and I'm a writer of various epic fantasy. I have 3 series currently. They range from do my little showmanship thing, young adult and to new adult to adult literature. My young adult is an adventure portal fantasy. It deals with the multiverse with 12 magical worlds. It's categorized sometimes as noble bright in the sense it's on the positive, sweeping adventure side of fantasy. Then my new adult series, the Incarn Saga, has 4 books. It is my only complete series. That one is darker. It's set in a kingdom on the verge of war where humans and shapeshifters have to decide if they can unite to fend off a greater threat or not. And then my final series that I have right now is my Viking, dark, almost grim dark fantasy based in and around Norse mythology. So you're going to see Yggdrasil, the Nine Realms, and all that jazz in that series. And again, that one's for adults because it does get pretty dark. But that's what I write. But going back to you now, unless anybody has questions, going back to you, so how did you two meet and decide you're going to work together on a co-writing project? That's one of the basics.
We actually met in college. Kelsey, when we first met, Kelsey was working for the college while I was still a student, and then when we both enrolled in the master's program, so we first met during when I was in undergrad, and Kelsey was working for the college, and then we were both in the master's program at the same time, which is where we got to do a creative writing class together and work a little bit more in that genre. And then we became really good friends through that and kept in touch. I graduated my master's and I'm currently in the Caribbean in vet school. And in the middle of school, I decided I needed a stress relief. And for me, that's always been writing. So I texted Kelsey randomly and said, hey, I have a very random question for you. Do you want to write a book? And everything kind of took off from there.
Wow, that's so cool. So how far along in the project, I couldn't catch in the beginning if you've completed it or you're still in the writing process of your collab?
We're in like the last few chapters of the first draft. I was so sad because we only had the chapters of the first draft left, and then we were looking at our plot outlines, and Kelsey was like, don't you feel like we should add one more? And I was like, should we? Yes. Do I want to chapter right now? No, but we do. We're gonna do it because that's what makes the most sense to the story. But yeah, we're pretty close to the end of the first draft.
That is so exciting now. I remember getting to that point. It is just an achievement when you get that first draft down and you realize you have written a book. You've done that. It's amazing.
That is, that's the point I want to be at. So when she was like, she's like, we probably need another chapter right here. And I was like, you're right. I hate that you're right, but because you just want to type those words like the end.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, do you both have like different characters you write, or how is this collab working? Is it per chapter, or how do you divide who writes what?
Mm-hmm. When we first started, because it is a dual point of view with two main characters, and the first 3 chapters we alternated and each person had a character, and it just didn't feel like the writing styles and the narrative was very cohesive. Like it felt like more than 2 different narratives. You could feel that it was like 2 different people writing it. And so then we took a breath, and we were still pretty early on in that point. So then we went to writing chapters together, and like normally we'll break it up into scenes. So like we had our whole story outline from the beginning, and then as we get to chapters, well, like if someone really wants to write a scene in that chapter, then they'll go with that. Sometimes we start in the beginning, sometimes we start in the middle. Sometimes I open the document and Kelsey has pantsed her way through something amazing, and I'm like, well, I gotta write whatever is on the other side of this.
Oh wow.
But right now, yeah, we it's a very the process that we have currently is pretty collaborative. Like we each go through each chapter and we'll make suggested edits and draft the chapter together.
Okay. So what kind of platform do you work on that are you doing like a Google Docs, or how do you both access the same document? Because I've talked to different kind of collaborative people before when writing, and they all have like their own thing they like to do. And it's always interesting to me because I write by myself.
Yeah, Google Docs has been working for us so far just because of the distance as well. It's not even that we're just 2 people working on a project, that we're in 2 different countries. So it's not like we can just pop over to each other's house. So as we're breaking things up within a scene, we'll do our draft, and then when we're ready for the other person to look through it, then they'll go through and make some line edits with suggested edits, comments, whatever's like more fitting for the change. And then we'll go back through and accept or reject suggestions, or if it's something that we need to discuss more. Like sometimes Kelsey will, this is the one of the downsides of technology. Sometimes Kelsey will ask me a question and I'll be like, I don't really know what your question means. And then we'll get on the phone together. Or we took one of Rebecca Thorne's writing classes together. Not writing so much as publishing classes. We met a great group of writers on there. So now we'll hop in some Discord chats sometimes too to bounce ideas off of each other. But that's what we're working with so far.
Hey, no, I love that. And I do like the idea of talking with other authors, because when I was starting off, I worked with a writing group, and we all met together back in the time when we were all in the same location. But now, kind of like I was the one who like left and unfortunately wasn't able to keep in contact with them that much. But I did like that experience of being able to talk to other authors and bounce off ideas, or do a reading and get some, critiques and saying, okay, maybe this doesn't sound fluid or everything. So that's always nice. But you're still in the first draft, so you got time. You got time.
We do like to joke because when we're thinking about like long-term timelines of like we'll go back through and do our edits of our chapters and then beta readers and everything. And having a co-author, especially when you're writing chapters together, very much at the same time sometimes, you almost have a built-in alpha reader as they're going through all of your grammar and spelling mistakes and questioning things that you want to do but make no sense to do.
No, that's why I kind of, it's always fascinating me again with these kind of pairings, because everybody can like come with a slightly different perspective, or maybe a fresher set of eyes, and catch something or question something that maybe whoever wrote that material didn't. And it makes it kind of, like you said, go through that preliminary editing rounds a little quicker, probably. I don't know for sure. I'm assuming.
I guess we'll find out when we get to the end, but definitely Kelsey is also a dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons outside.
Oh, nice.
And so that involves a fair bit of creativity as well. So she likes to ask a lot of world building questions. And that fills a lot of plot holes in and of itself. And again, sometimes she'll ask me a question and sometimes I have to be honest. I'm like, either A, I don't know, or B, I can know, but you got to give me some time to give you an answer.
Fair, yeah. Sometimes, and that's again, writing is nice because you get that opportunity to take time to answer the questions in the sense. I mean, obviously, I'm asking you a lot of questions off the cuff, but when you're creating the material, you have that time to edit, tweak. And that's why when people always ask me, what inspired me to be a writer, I'm like, well, I don't like to say I'm a storyteller because I feel like that's very oral tradition and I'm not good at off the cuff. But I like to tweak things, so I like to call it a story weaver, because you're weaving stuff, you're editing, you're undoing, you're tweaking until it's perfect and or at least as close as perfection you can achieve, and then put it out there.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I get hung up on the weirdest things, even when Kelsey doesn't ask me questions. Like I was trying to describe a lake, and for 20 minutes, I was Googling different types of rocks that could be found in lakes because I wanted to describe them finding a rock on a lake. So I feel like those little details, like you were saying, when you're trying to weave a story together, can really make a difference.
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. And, but yeah, it's hard for me to come up with stuff off the cuff, and I do need that time to be like, someone asked me a question, and I wasn't prepared to get a little flustered and be like, give me 5 minutes. Or I'll get back to you tomorrow. Just give me a second to process all that. But yeah, okay, sorry. I'm skimming over all the things that Kelsey's been chiming in with. I was just seeing if any of them. There's so much chatter. I love it. I love chatter. And yes, I actually have recently started playing Dungeons and Dragons, so I do think that's really interesting. And it makes me now want to do I guess it would still follow fan fiction because it was loosely inspired by those concepts. Though I really don't know if I want to call it fan fiction because it will be fantasy, but that's another story for another day. That's the thing is like you create characters there as well, and when I realized that and you create your backstory and everything, I was like, I fell in love with my character so much. I'm like, oh wait, now I have to write her story.
Yeah, I mean, and it can get really involved, like how far into their backstory you want to go. Or I've seen, I mean, I'm still pretty new to it as well, but I've seen, people that go on multiple campaigns, how they interweave their character through different
Mm-hmm.
stories.
Yeah, no, it's just another way to, yeah, like you said, tell stories, create characters, build your worlds, and have fun with other people. But okay, so question popped up. It says, "Can you write fan fiction about your own D&D character?" Good question. Yes. I don't know. That is a good. But so many people do write fan fiction. I'm sure if I did the wonderful googliness, I could probably find the definition and figure out what you can. Obviously, you can't deal with trademark stuff, and there are no-nos, and if you're trying to publish it on your own. But something that's been on the back burner of mine, because I have a character that will be, if I do write her, will be my first villain arc through the villain's
Oh,
eyes. Or someone who I haven't decided she's going to be full villain or maybe have a redemption near the end, but I do want to go into that kind of story with this character. So it's exciting stuff. But I have other projects I need to finish first.
yeah. It's like that TikTok sound where it's like, I support women's rights, but most of all, I support women's wrongs. The villain.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay, so let me ask. So, as you're going through the writing and everything, what have you started thinking about what you want your cover to be? I mean, I know that's still a few stages ahead. Some people like to get covers early so they can promote them, at least the ebook version, because I know you can't do the spine and all that until you know, details, the minutia stuff. But and then other people like me have always done that toward the end. But look at all the people who plan well in advance, and I'm jealous. So have you all decided? Have you thought about kind of where you want to go with it? I know it's maybe too early.
I think Kelsey's calling me out in the comments. I do have a thing for aesthetics. I'm a very visual person. Have I, as I'm scrolling through TikTok, start following cover artists of different genres, be they like the traditional covers or like I really love the more so that's coming out recently, the artistic covers. Like there's a book that recently came out, Can't Spell Treason Without T, that's very artistic.
I just saw
There's
that
also,
cover today.
I'm trying to think of that. Yes. I love how artistic, because we, as readers, like I definitely like a cover does draw me in. As much as we say don't judge a book by its cover,
Mm-hmm.
I love how some of the covers can be, or a magic steeped in poison. I don't know if you've seen that one. That one's very colorful and vibrant. Um, but I have to do more research into what fits the genre.
Yes.
And also we wanted to look for, we wanted to look towards going the traditional publishing route first. And so sometimes that's taken out of your control a little bit. But if we end up self-publishing, then I definitely have some preferences, but I'm not the only person making decisions.
That's true. And again, you always want, that you want what you want, but you also want anybody who's working with you to get what they want out of it too, because it is your baby together, your book baby. Yeah. But yeah, no, it is very smart, especially like, yeah, that was my other question was, did you want to go straight into indie? Do you want to query? But before I get to that question, but yeah, no, going back to the covers, it is very smart to do some research of what is trending right now in whatever genre or subgenre that you want to try to market into. And I didn't realize that as much when I began, so I had to at one point switch over and redesign my first cover because I wanted what I wanted, but it wasn't genre right. And when I got the new cover, all of a sudden I can see a big difference. So it is important.
Yeah. So ultimately, research is probably a big thing. I also, like, I've seen some indie authors design their own covers, and admire them for that because I don't have those kind of technical skills.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Kelsey, of the two of us, is more technical. She she made our map, the draft of our map that we
Ooh.
the most technical I get is I finally figured out how to use Artbreeder, and so now I can use that as a procrastination tool. I said more technical, Kelsey, not,
Oh,
but I probably, even if we did self-publishing and had to find our own cover, I'd probably lean more towards hiring someone than trying to do it myself
and
personally.
I talked with someone last week who designed her own cover, and it was gorgeous. But like you said, I mean, I'm an artist. I do painting, but not this kind of stuff. And books should look not necessary. Here's the trick. It's like you want to be as close as you can to trend, but unique enough that it's memorable. And
Yeah.
that's always that trick. But for what I'm going for, I don't have that skill set. So yes, I definitely went and searched for authors since I am indie at the moment. But yeah, no, I went through that whole process. But yeah, going back to you guys, were you talking about querying first, I'm assuming then, based on a little bit of what you mentioned before?
That's the goal, especially now that we finished this publication course. And so now we have a little bit more idea of the finer points of it. We went through drafting a query letter, writing that blurb, writing a synopsis, and just going through that process. And I know it's like you're heading into the trenches, but I think we want to give it a solid shot. But worst case, if we want to get the story out there, like, both of us are open to self-publishing. Like, it's not traditional publish or don't publish at all. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're ready for the rejection.
it
I'm
happens,
very
but you never know. You
prepared.
could be the one that gets it on the first go, but most likely there are going to be at least a few rejections along the way. And that's not, again, not to say anything to your work or your quality of your story or anything. It's just one of those unfortunate realities that people have to be aware of, that right now the big publishing houses are really trying to just gear what they are predicting is going to be the trend next.
Yeah,
And if you're not on that trend, your probability of getting it, even if you have a spectacular story, is very low. But I have seen people here on this platform, especially, that they went indie and then they got picked up after the fact because so many people started, reading their book and, talking about it and popularizing on stuff, platforms like this. And all of a sudden they do get picked up. So it happens both ways.
right, right. And then there's the other thing about, I mean, there is definitely, Kelsey mentioned in the comments, like, creative freedom, like how much you're willing to change your story. Like, for instance, we learned in this course, a lot of times, because
Probably a
new
little bit
adult,
of, there you go.
that, yeah.
Sorry, I'm
Oh,
losing you a little bit. I think it's your uh probably a little bit of a spotty glitch there. Let me know when you get back. But in the meantime, I'll read some of the comments. But yeah, talking about traditional publishing, they are concerned about what you sell. That is true. And if that's you guys, hopefully it is, then great. If not, we don't want to change our story for that. Yes, I agree. Are you back yet, or are we still kind of glitching? I think we're still kind of glitching. But
can you
that's
hear me?
I can barely hear you. So what sometimes this
Oh,
happens when you're trying to do things when across multiple countries. But yeah, I'm skimming back. If anybody has any questions thus far, let me know. But yes, okay, so we might be about, as I mentioned a little earlier, about switching because we have two of you, and we'll see if this works. The switch the authors. 1, 2, 3. Let me see if I invite. Let's see. Give it a second. Ah, hello,
Can you
hello.
hear me?
I can hear you. I cannot see you
I
yet,
don't
but
know
I
why you
can hear
cannot
you.
see me. This is very sad. Oh, there, button. Okay, got it. Hi.
Hello. Okay, I still can't see you, but I can hear you perfectly. Oh, there you
Okay.
are. Fantastic.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'm
Welcome.
Kelsey as the second part of authors Katelynn and Kelsey.
Yay! Okay, so tell me a little bit about your background and what got you particularly into writing in general.
I believe that I've always been a writer. I remember watching very specifically before I even knew what fanfic was, watching Sailor Moon and then going to write in my diary how I wanted this like triangle between Prince Diamond and Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask. And I was like, because I wanted a different story than what they were telling.
I
Uh,
love that.
so then I actually did my undergraduate in English, and I first thought I wanted to be a teacher and then decided against that, at least for my own career path, because I didn't think there was much money to be made or a career path to be had in writing, but it's always stuck with me, whether that
Hmm.
just be like my own personal like journaling, fan fictioning, and as Caitlin mentioned, I'm a dungeon master now. I've been playing D&D for 10 plus years. So
Oh.
homebrew is definitely a different way to create my own stories then as well.
Hmm. So does your experience now being a dungeon master influence how you approach your writing? If that makes sense.
Oh, a great question. Um,
You may not
I'm gonna
know. It
say
could be subtly influencing you behind the way.
not at the moment. I think I am not afraid to include or approach my passions through a similar lens.
Hmm.
Um, for example, I know Caitlin said that I had a side project, and I'm uh, it is that is a twist on Shakespeare's comedies and romances that take place in a virtual reality, because there's always
Okay.
like gender bending and cross dressing, and I thought that was a great way to cross that bridge that's new. And so in a fantasy RPG similar to like Genshin Impact and across with WoW, but so I'm not afraid to insert my passions into something, and I feel very confident in world building and in like technicalities. For example, the scene that we're writing right now is a combat scene, and I
I love
hate
combat.
writing combat scenes,
Oh,
and
I'm
Caitlin
sorry.
doesn't
I
really
love
like
combat.
writing combat scenes. And she'll be like, Kelsey, I need your D&D brain. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I know this isn't necessarily reality, but it is my basis for what I can go on. But it doesn't inform my entire writing process, if that's what
Hmm.
does that make sense.
Yes, that's cool. That is really neat. No, I love that. So, okay, so how are you liking this collab process? And obviously, I know you're not going to say you hate it because you seem to both really enjoy it, and
Mhm.
I think this is so fascinating to me.
Yeah. I'm very much enjoying it. And I think we were about 10 chapters or so in, and I told Caitlin that this book feels like my actual chance to write a novel. Not that I couldn't do it before, but I'm actually doing it. And I don't think I would be able to do it without her at the
Okay,
same time.
accountability. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And in my TikToks, especially when I'm talking about co-authoring, I'll say my entire life changed when my best friend asked me to write a novel with her. And that's entirely true. And as Caitlin was saying, it was a text message. It's like, hey, Kelsey, I have a random question for you. I'm like, great, I love random questions. And she's like, will you write a book with me? And I go, yes, but we need to have conversations first.
Yeah, we need to figure
So,
out these details on how this is going to work.
and how this is going to work. And I do honestly believe that I could not do this with anybody else other than Caitlin. I have a lot of respect for her as an author. We balance each other very well, where she is strong, I am weak, and where she leans on me for technicalities and apparently amazing pantsing.
Hey, that's fantastic. So let me ask, which one of you came up with the preliminary idea for your current book?
I would say she did.
Okay.
Um, because she sent me a document of like story ideas that she had like thought about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even before that, we talked about, okay, like what kind of genres, what do we want to write? And like we both like fantasy. Okay, we'll write fantasy. What tropes do you like? Like, I like romance. I enjoy the nuances of building relationships, and we both love enemies to lovers. So we had that. That's our checklist there.
Love it.
Um, so then she sent me that list, and there was a couple of different like concepts or ideas, and I did a like a green light, red light type of thing. Like I would be most comfortable seeing this happen. I would be least comfortable with these, as in red. So there were
Mm-hmm.
two ultimately that were green on my end, and she's like, let's go with this one.
Oh, okay.
So that was
Now,
that was her idea.
and as for developing you're working off a drafted outline, correct?
Correct.
So was that something that you both did, or how did the drafting of the outline work? Because I know once you have that down, it's kind of probably, I would think, a little easier to then kind of get in
Yes,
the meat of the story. But how did
absolutely.
you two work together to develop just the core outline and figure out the story's gonna be this?
Yes. I know whenever you were talking with Katelynn, she was like, Kelsey asked me these questions and I don't know the answer to them. A lot of it was that. Um, so she would say, like, okay, so there's a girl from this people who is different from the boy from this people, and the
Hmm.
boy winds up in the mountains. And I go, well, why is he in the mountains? No one just goes into the random mountains because. And she goes, well, that's a good question. And it's like he's running away. And I'm like, okay, well, why is he running away?
Hmm.
Um, and so we developed those like backstories of our characters first, and then figured out their goals, and then interwove their stories together so that we could come to this culminating plot then and their character arcs. From then, we did a little bit more world building in some cultural aspects. There's a training arc. There's a cultural piece that is called the Proving that Caitlin's commenting that there's a lot of random questions. And then she still loves me regardless of that. I hope so. Um, it's called the Proving, which there's a spiritual trial and then a demonstration of skill that he wants to go through so he can prove himself. And
Oh, okay.
just so intertwining those fantasy elements to it so
Hmm.
we can explore culturally. And that's
Hmm.
how we developed that plot. So then both characters can come through their own development and they both
Okay.
feel equally as weighted.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. I like that. No, I just, again, I think I'm a little, well, no, I am definitely a control freak. So I don't know how I would feel about working with someone who would have different suggestions. So
Hmm.
it is so nice to see, when it does work out with two people or more. I'm sure there are collabs with more than two, but it is something that, again, like I said repeatedly, it's so foreign to me. It's fascinating, but so foreign to me.
Hmm. And I absolutely, and I'll say it again and again that I don't think I'd be able to do this with anybody else but Caitlin. And I think since we started in that planning process and we talked through what we want out of the story, what we want out of the project, because
Hmm.
this is just supposed to be at its very core, it's us two as best friends writing a novel together.
I love that.
So we need to there have been times when I have to ask myself, Kelsey, is this the hill you want to die on? Is this worth it? And be like, no, no. If she wants to go with this, then that's perfectly fine with me. Let's continue on and see
Hmm.
where that goes. Because if I sit and I think about it, if it's not going to be me, in a way, she is my alpha reader.
Yeah, yeah.
In a way, she is my editor. It's just
Hmm.
a more of a collaborative relationship at this point.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Let me see. Okay, so
Just
the
the
same thought.
thing.
Aw,
Caitlin saying the same
the
thing, that
hill
is
I
this the hill
want to
that I
die.
want to die on? And
I
there
love that.
are some hills that we do butt heads on, and
Hmm.
for that specifically, we've identified a person that we both know and trust from a literary standpoint that will bring
Hmm.
in and has access to it and say, we have a question about this because this person thinks A and this person thinks B, and we don't even tell who's who. It's like, what do
Okay.
you think?
Yeah.
And so then we'll go with whatever they say.
Oh, that's nice too, because that will help kind of mitigate potential arguments.
Mhm.
And having again another fresh set of eyes on it, someone else can be like, or I don't know
Mhm.
how it works, but at least that does help with that process. And I'm assuming again you are 5 chapters, 6 chapters away from completing your draft. Whoa, 3. Okay, I'm putting you're close.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we were on our, so we're technically like we're on our fourth to last chapter, and then we have
Hmm.
3 additional chapters.
Okay, yeah.
So we were on our third additional chapter and then had two, and I'm like, I'm looking at the plot points and everything, and I'm like, we need to round this out with another chapter.
I had to do that with one of my novellas. I was trying to at first I was going to have them all the same like the same length, and one of them I was just staring at. I was like, "You need a wrap up chapter. I'm sorry. I have to make you
Mhm.
just a little longer because I just needed that to finish and polish it off,
Mhm.
so it just worked better." But I totally understand that. So, how big do you estimate? I guess everybody does word count, and I do page
Yeah.
count, but I understand the concept of the word count. How many? How big is your book word count wise? Do you estimate it going to range?
Estimated going forward is about 115,000. We
Nice.
actually had to do an estimated word count for Rebecca's class that we went through.
Hmm.
So I actually did like an analysis of how many pages were in each chapter. So, I mean, maybe I can get Katelynn to look that up and she can post our like average page count or estimated page count. But I would say roughly about 10 pages per chapter. And
Yeah.
of course, some are smaller, some are bigger, and we'll have 25 by the time that 25
Hmm.
chapters by the time that everything is said and done.
Okay, so you're
So,
you're doing decent sized chapters actually, but no, I like that.
yes.
Okay, that's always interesting because there are people who I range from giant books to novellas.
Hmm.
But I do want to kind of aim for whatever series comes next. I have plenty of ideas. I just now have to finish things before I get into them. But
Hmm.
aim for that kind of, I guess, what's running as average between like that 95, 100,000, because I have some that are a lot bigger and some that are a lot smaller. But I think that's a nice sweet spot to kind of aim for. So you're kind of right on that, right on the money for that.
I think,
And I know when you're querying, that's a nice range too that people like, because I got unfortunately, one of my books when I was querying got turned down just because it was too long for being YA. They said you would have to lose a third of it, and I was like, I am not losing a third of my story. Indie it is.
yep, that's exactly the same feeling that Katelynn and I have when it comes to traditional publishing. It's how much are we willing to bend versus wanting to keep the integrity of the story that we wrote together.
Yes, yes,
So,
and that is a decision that every author has to make. At that some point during the process when you're trying to figure things out is where are you comfortable with. There are perks, obviously, especially with the bigger publishing houses that are very nice. And then there's a lot of perks when it comes to indie. It's a give and take of workload and what you get and what you have to sacrifice on all ends. So nothing's perfect, and you just have to figure out and feel out what you want to do when it comes to that point.
absolutely, absolutely.
But it
So
never hurts to query and get an agent.
if we're, I mean, why not? We have the manuscript. If it falls within the parameters, then what source are going to tell us? No.
Yeah, well, that's very true.
So
Now, are you two? I don't know if you thought this far in advance because you're almost there. You're almost there with your first draft.
almost, we're so
Almost
close.
there.
And I
But
swear, I'm
are you considering, writing? Is this going to be a series? Is this a standalone? Are you going to try to do more collabs down the future? Do you have any clue?
we have
Say
an
5 questions.
outline for 3 books for this series.
Ooh.
So
Okay.
this book could be its own standalone,
Hmm.
if we put it out there, but it could easily be expanded on. We have little subplots that we've been teasing throughout it that we could elaborate on moving down the road, but we're just trying to get through the first one
Yes.
right now. So if it's taken us, I think it's going to be a little over a year And
Hmm.
Katelynn, please correct me if I'm wrong on that. She's better with technicalities than I am to write this first draft. And I swear these last couple of chapters have taken longer to write than the rest of the book, just because it's the climax of all of the action, everything that we've been building to.
Hmm.
So we're this word isn't right. This word isn't right. We need to rephrase this. We need to move this around. We started in mid to late February, I believe. Okay.
Oh.
Hey, that's even better than what I thought.
Yeah, no,
So
you're good.
yeah. And then after that point, we'll see where we are. Like I know Katelynn has her own little project and I have my own little project, but I've been enjoying the process writing with her so far, so I would absolutely be open to further and different collaborations down the road.
Oh, I love that. No, that is really cool. And you have so much time right now to decide if you do want to pursue um making it a series or keeping it standalone. And you never know, you could probably, I don't know. I can't say anything, but you could probably, I could see, easily tweak out a totally different story if you wanted
Mm-hmm.
to,
Oh
query
no,
one and then
yep.
work on
Hmm.
another. But
We have a list of like little mini short stories that we could
ooh,
do, like the female main character's like brother and his partner, like whenever they get together, what was that like? And that could be its own little mini novella in and of
oh,
itself. So I'm like, I'm perfectly okay writing that all just because I think it would be fun. Um,
yeah, and you know, advice. If you too are trying to start a newsletter or have a
yeah.
newsletter, obviously those like little
Hmm.
novellas or short stories. I do short stories, but to like say, hey, here's a taste, little sampling of our
Hmm.
work as we're getting ready to, go through that whole publishing process, and then you'll
Hmm.
have people hungry for more.
Yes. We have the outline for a newsletter and like how often that we think that we could
Hmm.
feasibly put out something like that. I don't think we're at that point right now where it's something that we want to start. But that is definitely something that we eventually like want to tease out just a little bit, even if it's like snippets of chapters or interactions.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's definitely something that we want to do later on. So if you have any advice for starting a newsletter, by all means.
Oh my, I don't even. I'm trying to remember how it's. I'm always that person that kind of bumbles through the whole process until I figure it out. So it took me a long time to figure out, or even have the time to kind of develop a couple short stories. But they do seem to like, when you give someone something and they get a little taste, even if it's a prequel or a standalone, it's,
Hmm.
draws more attention. And as for the newsletter themselves, you can just be reporting where you are in the process. I
Okay.
mean, you don't necessarily have to constantly send them and give them something. You can just say, "Here's my update to whatever." And a lot of authors you can do if you have your genre, you kind of marketing into. You could
Hmm.
do swaps with other authors about saying, "Okay, you're in my genre. Would you like me to talk about your book?" And even if you don't have anything right now to like flip flop, but other authors, it gives them exposure. It's drawing attention to your newsletter. People are joining because they're, interested in what you're sharing, what you have to say. And so,
Hmm.
again, it's one of those things. If you build it out before a release and you already have the followers, it's easier to get their attention to let them know about your release and just have that kind of basic grounding from the get go, which I wish I knew at the time because I didn't do that.
Is there a specific platform that you use for it?
The two main ones most people do are MailChimp or MailerLite, and I use MailerLite personally, but it just is to each their own. They have a lot of similarities and they do have their differences, but MailChimp is, I think, the older one. MailerLite is the one, it's new, but for me, it's just very easy and intuitive to use because I don't know a lot about I'm what I know about technology. I'm forced to learn for the purpose of being an author.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
I like those kind of ones where you can copy paste, manipulate sections, and easily put together something and then replicate it easily too. But newsletters
Trial
are
by fire.
Yes, exactly. So I would recommend one or the other to kind of look in and see what you like. And I think, I don't know about MailChimp, but I think if I remember correctly, and they probably still do it, at least on the MailerLite part of it, it's free for you to utilize up until I think you hit, I don't know what the threshold is, if it's 1,500 people or something. So you have a threshold to get into, and it's free for you. And I'm like, free is great.
I like that word. That's a very good word.
It is
And
amazing.
Katelynn also just updated that up to chapter 22, we have an average chapter page count of 11 pages or 4,364 words.
So they are definitely on the meatier side of chapters, but that's not bad. I mean, as long as they're dynamic enough to catch people's attention and keep them what you want.
Mm-hmm. And again,
Exciting.
like that's an average. Like we're not going to try to draw out a scene just for page count
Oh yeah,
purposes.
yeah.
If it wraps up nicely in 8, then it wraps up nicely in 8. If we need to draw it out to 14, we will do that because it's fight scenes. Love fight
Hey,
scenes.
if you ever need to break in between a fight scene's a good way to like put that pause and break a new chapter. And he swung at. Read the
Yeah.
next chapter to find out.
Hmm. I think
But no.
a lot of it also too might be I believe that one of my strengths in writing is dialogue,
Ooh,
and
okay,
Katelynn
good.
can kind of like attest to that. Like it's the exchange of words and chosen words is something that I really like to explore. So, but then starting a new paragraph each single time, like that could
Mhm.
easily build out chapters then as well.
Yeah, no, that dialogue was definitely something that I was not, it was not my strength in the beginning. And I still can't say it's my strength, but I know I'm better at it now, more comfortable writing dialogue now than I was when I was doing my earlier works because that was my weak spot. Again, I'm more the action person.
Nice.
Action scenes, I got you. Dialogue was a little harakiri in the beginning.
Well, then maybe we could do some co-authoring in that way.
There you go.
So,
No, I love that. And then I've always wondered. Here's one thing. It's totally kind of a little off the. Maybe it's not
yeah,
exactly off the wall,
I
but
love random questions. Bring it on.
the concept of anthologies, where
Yes.
each author or author grouping puts in an anthology. It's something that I've always considered. Is that a? I guess it's a beneficial thing for authors to try to do because
Hmm.
you're cross promoting against people, and it's something that I've been considering. Is that something you two have ever considered as trying to submit to an anthology?
It, you were the first person that asked it. It is not something that we had thought about doing. But I do think I know, like, I think I read one that was put together by George R. R. Martin that was like Dangerous Women.
Yes.
And authors would take chapters and just put them in those anthologies. So that
Mm-hmm.
could, I never thought about doing that before, but no, that's definitely something I'd be open to.
Yeah, no, I've been hearing that chatter more and more lately about the concept of anthologies, and it is very intriguing. Of course, that goes back to do you have the time and the energy to get it done?
Caitlin says
So,
that she looked into romance anthology Meet Cute
aw,
as a personal project. So,
hey, very interesting.
so
Yeah, I haven't.
she's more forward thinking than I am.
Yeah, when I say I've been thinking about it, I literally this is my level of thinking about it, talking
Talking
about
it
it to
out
other
right
people.
here, yes.
I haven't
Hmm.
really done any research on it, so
Hmm.
that's as far as I've
Yeah.
gotten.
Now that you're talking about it, I think it might be a really cool project to get several like indie TikTok authors together and
Yeah,
to just like throw that book out there and promote everybody a little bit. That would be a fun
that would be
anthology
cool.
project.
I like
So,
that. I like that. Now, here's one thing I am not going to volunteer myself on is organizing that.
yes, I say that,
Time and
and then
energy. Which
yeah.
goes into, I guess, a question I have for you guys. So, how often are you able, because you have your full time, I guess, job, essentially lives outside of writing?
Hmm.
How often are you able to sit down and write? Is this something daily? Is this weekly? Is it on the weekends? Or,
Hmm.
how rigid are you of sitting down and putting words on paper?
We try to write every day.
Okay.
And that's just personal commitments that we've made. And it just 250, 300 words,
Okay.
paragraph or two. Because writing something is better than not writing at all.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that also does include, like Katelynn will go through and do first draft, and then I'll go through
Mm-hmm.
and I'll edit, or vice versa. So that we also kind of include that. But then there's also days, like it's Katelynn's in vet school, where she has to spend 8+ hours studying. So I understand that, and that's important. So we try to make up for it whenever time allows. But the book's not going to write itself. So if we have that daily commitment to one another and that accountability, we find that it's getting written.
Yeah, and it's my personal experience, but the more you write, the easier it is to write, and
Right.
then the quicker the story comes together. So if you work together in another project, it may not take as long. It may be, a month shorter or half the,
Hmm.
length, so you can write it because you're used to your system and you're comfortable with the writing process and
Yeah.
everything. And at least in my opinion, it does get easier.
I think it was, I mean, I feel like the words are coming at least in these last couple of
Mm-hmm.
chapters, but then it's also that balance of two perspectives on what this looks like.
Yes.
But I tend to write the most probably when I'm at home at night.
Mm-hmm.
My husband gets up at super early in the morning to go do the gym thing because he's training to be a Super Saiyan. And yes. Um, and so whenever he's in bed, I'll use that like alone time to write.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Perfect.
but that's that. That's
Now,
that.
I'm curious. Are you? Do you know if are you both evening writers, or do you know? I guess
I
depending on
It
time of
depends on
day
her
at
schedule,
school.
really,
Yes. Yeah.
and yeah, and when her tests are. Um, I also like a little bit of personal lives too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
It's
I
nice.
guess I'll let
Balance is
her
key.
answer that in the comments down below if she is when she seems to write the most.
Yeah, balance is key. But okay, let me ask because we're rounding the end of the hour already. But yeah, no, it doesn't go. It goes fast.
It
Um,
does. Well, you got
but let
two of
me
us too, so
No, yeah, it's great. I love this. It was kind of fun. I like this. Let me ask. So, for anybody who's interested in following you too, as you continue your writing progress and process, outside of here, obviously, are
mhm.
there other places for them to follow you? What are your handles? I will be trying to post them when I repurpose this on YouTube below. But yeah, where can other people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here on TikTok at authors Katelynn and Kelsey. Um, and or is it Katelynn X Kelsey? I forget. I'm not looking in the
It's
right spot for
yeah,
that.
author
Um,
Katelynn Kelsey. I see.
and then on Instagram we have the same one, authors Katelynn X Kelsey, also on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just ourselves trying to work our own full-time jobs and cosplay as functioning adults. So
Yeah.
those are the only two platforms that we felt like we could manage effectively at this
Hey,
point.
that is less is
Mhm.
more, especially in the beginning.
We also like we thought about like a Facebook, we thought about a Twitter. We're not like I know there's a big book community on Twitter, but it's just such a at least in my personal opinion, it's not a place that I find is friendly or helpful at the moment. And I'm really enjoying the book talk and author talk community here on TikTok.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well,
then
they all
also
have
just
their different vibes, and some of them, like
yeah.
for me, my weak point right now is Insta. Twitter has been weak up until
Mhm.
recently, and all of a sudden I just figured it out, and I was like, oh. But yeah, no, it's one of those things like everybody has a different vibe and comfort thing, and I do love this platform.
Mhm.
This one is pretty chill.
So
And pretty honest. And I see in the comments that say y'all are working on a website, work in
but that's a
progress.
work in
So that's
progress.
always, hey, that's a great thing to have. I do advise that one for people because even as you're getting ready to put something out, you can always again, it's a nice
Mhm.
place for updates and again to keep your links when you do interviews. You can link those on there so people can
Yep.
reference. There's a lot of things you could do if you have your map that you're comfortable showing, you could put that up
Yep,
there. All that kind of fun stuff. It
all
can be
that
a lot.
kind of fun stuff.
Oh,
And then we also do have a Gmail account. Um, Same thing,
mhm.
authors Katelynn and Kelsey at Gmail. So that helps us. And I guess I'll just throw out to anybody who's a new author that doesn't know, with your Google account, you can create a free website on Wix. So that's how we got our website up and running,
I
or
like it.
whatever it is. So just kind of laying that groundwork.
Hmm.
And hopefully we'll have a newsletter out shortly. So if you follow us, then you'll get that.
Well, look into if you are interested in this is something that I've enjoyed using the platform. It's called Story Origin.
Okay.
And for when you're developing newsletters, it's a nice platform where authors do a lot of swaps. You can join when you have your book, different kind of book bundles, and some of
Hmm.
them can be, hey, if you are an author who has a book sale or looking for reviews, you can be in a bundle of other authors in whatever subgenre you're in, and it's just things you can add onto your newsletter and can keep you accountable, and you can have your arc books there if you're going indie
Hmm.
and doing your own working on your arcs. You can put those up, review copies, lots of stuff on that platform. So Story Origin is a nice, um at least I found it very helpful when developing stuff like that. So
I appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah, and I know steps away, first query.
Steps steps away, but that's part of what I love about this community so much. It's like you've been there, you've done that, and Katelynn and I are just starting. So we appreciate any sort of like feedback and advice, because it's like we're all in this together. Like your story is not going to be my story, and it's not like your books are going to be taking at the same places that ours could be out there. It's we're out there to enjoy and support one another.
Yes, cross promotion is key.
So thank you for having us on.
Yay! But yeah, so if there's anything else you two want to mention to any potential future readers, future
Mhm.
followers, let me know.
So,
And
it's the novel right now is called Beyond the Mountain, and
I like that name.
hopefully we'll have it finished up here by uh, we were thinking the end of September, but I think now that's going to be closer to the end of October. And we'll be looking for some beta readers then shortly. But I'll actually hop off here and let Katelynn hop back on if she can,
Okay.
so that if she has anything too that she wants to add and wrap up with. But thank you so much for having us.
Well, I'm so happy to get to talk to both of you. This has been fun, and now I know this process. I like this.
Yes. I know we could if we've like our personal TikToks are not as well followed. We didn't put as much effort into it. So who if now we know for next time, get us up to 1,000, ourselves up to 1,000, and then we can both join. But
Yeah, I've never done one of those kind of multiple group things. That would be kind of
mhm.
fun. Okay, let's give it a moment, and then I will say the goodbye wrap up on the other end. Let's see if we get her. Invite sent. Do do do. This has been fun. I like this process. Let's see. She sees the invite. We're getting there. We're getting there. Haha. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Yay!
Fun technology. Thank you so much for your patience and helping everything work out with the switching back and forth.
I know this is. I'm excited that this works this way, and now I can. Well, if anybody else decides they want to do this, and I know now it works. This is cool. I like this. See, learning it. I always learn something new every time I do one of these things, so this was neat. But yeah, is there anything you would like to say to potential followers, or anything about you, your book?
I'm not sure how
That's
much
cool.
Kelsey's signing off I missed as she gave me my cue and I started switching profiles and hopping over. But yeah, anybody that's interested, it's adult to adult fantasy. It has some mythology aspects to it, dual point of view. And if you're at all interested, please check us out for more videos on our TikTok. And yeah, in a few months, hopefully we'll be looking for some beta readers once we go back through and do those edits.
Yes. Now, my one last bit of sage advice is before beta readers, compile all your chapters into one thing and make sure you have your copyright, just because
Yeah.
always cover your bases and then go get your beta readers. So
Yes,
cover your bases.
that is an excellent point, because it is valuable. So I've seen people recommending as authors that when you do send it out as a beta copy, considering even an NDA. But
Yeah, no, one of those things is, by definition, your work, once you're finished with it, is technically copyright written. But having that certificate and that timestamp just helps any headaches. Hopefully you never have any, but it's always nice to have that paper trail.
well, thank you so much for your time tonight. It was great speaking with you.
It was nice speaking with you, and good luck as you continue going through vet school. That is so exciting. I'm a huge animal lover, so that is just fantastic. And I'll keep my eye out for both of you and your work in the future.
Yes. I love when Kelsey asks me random animal facts, or even in our writing groups, people have a horsey question or a dog question. I'm always here to help.
I love that, because I did animal psychology in college as one of my majors, and so it's one of the reasons why my first book series incorporates animal shifters, because it was fun getting into the animal side of the psychology part. But, well, nice speaking with you, and if you guys ever want to jump back on one of these again, let me know.
Yes, have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.